Money does not make you a man, but for a long time, I believe that it did. Now, I'm going to share something that most people on social media are not going to tell you. You see, on social media, we are fed what are we fed? We're fed that the more money you make, the more successful you are, the more women you're going to have, the more your kids are going to love you, the more your wife's going to love you, the happier you're going to feel, all these things. What else are we shown? Just, if we're not being able to buy a Lamborghini or if we're not able to afford that mansion of a house, then we're less of a man. Well, I'm sorry. If you believe all that, this series is not for you because I want to tell you something that probably very few, if any, social media influencers are going to tell you. And before I tell you what that is, I'm just going to state a quick fact here about myself. Who am I? Well, I'm not even a social media influencer. Who I am is a father of three kids. I work in the trades. I'm a volunteer firefighter. I'm just a normal guy who is tired of seeing how men are portrayed on social media, the false lies that we're told, and I've been struggling myself. I'm still struggling. I am not perfect by any means, but you know what? I've struggled down this road, and I know I'm not the only guy who is struggling down the same road. I know I'm not the only guy who feels like he's not enough based on what he's been told by just social media and the world. So, this series is just me going through ways that you as a father can provide for your family and ways that have helped me and just lessons that I've learned. So I encourage you to stick around as these episodes come out each week. So we are told on social media, like I said, constant things. Status equals money, money equals how much you can provide for your family and your self-worth. And you know what? All that leads is a group of normal guys who are just trying to make a living, seeing that and being like, okay, well, I don't have $1 million in the bank, so I must not be worth that much money, or I must be not have that much self worth. If I don't have that much money to provide, this really awesome new PlayStation 5 or whatever for my kids, they're not going to love me as much. It's just all crap. And it's honestly, it's stressful. It creates in men this unrealistic expectation of what our jobs are and what our roles are and how we're supposed to provide. And, you know, there's so many people on social media that we could follow who are just selling us a load of BS. And so I want to just offer, again, just this clarity and this my point of view on where things actually should be. Now, money is important. I'm not anti money. I'm just anti trying to go into a ton of debt and trying to set unrealistic standards so we can get our self worth from. I know the pressure that it's put on us, it's put on me, especially trying to provide for my family. And, I live in Canada and the economy is crap and prices are just so high. And as a millennial, it's just so hard to be able to afford things. And thankfully, I've been fortunate enough to be able to get my own house and kind of get a foot into the ground. That being said, it's still hard. I grew up on food stamps and I grew up having nothing. And so I have an underlying fear of not having my kids live through that. And that drives me like crazy. So much so it probably drives my wife nuts. But yeah, I have this fear that if I'm not doing enough, if I'm not trying to make that extra dollar or trying to find a way to make an extra bit of money, my kids are going to suffer because of me, because I'm not going to be able to provide enough. I had one time I was on my phone, I was just doing work related stuff, and I was in the room with my kids, and they were playing and talking, and I was what I thought was engaged with my family, but I was on my phone and I was, doing the whole yeah, yeah, looking up every 5 seconds, which probably was every 5 minutes. And all of a sudden, my wife said, Kyle, they realize you're not listening to them. And I look up, and my son had asked me a question, and I obviously did not answer it correctly. And then he gave my wife a look, which then just realized dad's not listening. He's checked out. And that moment just hit me of like, okay, I need to be present here. Because even though I'm trying to, you know, again, work towards providing for them financially, I still wasn't with them. My son doesn't care about the paychecks. He is too young to understand how money works. But what he does understand is whether dad is checked into him or not and paying attention. That is the big thing that really just kind of one of the lessons I've learned that just kind of set my perspective on how I should be viewing money. Another thing I grew up without is a dad. And so I am hyper fixated also just on being a very present father. And so provision isn't a bad thing. Like I said, you need to be able to provide money. And every job is different. Like you may be a white collar guy, or you may be in the trades like myself, or you may be a first responder, also like myself. Whatever it is. And like even within the trades, right? I'm a plumber. My hours, my wage is very different than someone who may be a concrete guy or a laborer or whatever. There are times where in order to take home more money, you need to work more and put more time in. And that's okay. I'm not trying to dismiss that by any means. I'm not trying to sugarcoat or, make some guys' lives or careers less because I completely can acknowledge we're all on different battlefields sometimes and it could look different. What I am saying is when you are home, it is so important to be involved and be present with your kids, right? My wife tells me all the time, I'm at work and the 12 hours that I'm not home, my kids, my daughter even, is waiting for me, right? She doesn't see the amount of time and energy and exhaustion that I go through that by the time that I get home, the first thing I want to do is to go on lie on the couch, maybe take a nap or just zone out on TV and shut my brain off because I'm just fried physically. She doesn't see that. What she sees is her dad coming home that she's missed all day long and wants to spend time with and play with, or my son who wants to wrestle me and play fight. It's so easy to, as a father, and I could have every right to be like, no, I'm sorry, I need to take a break. But then you're telling your kid who has just been so excited to see you, no, wait longer. And I have seen that too, because I've done that. I see what that does to a kid. I see how disappointed they can get. And so, yeah, it's hard. Being a dad is hard. I just want to again acknowledge the men out there who are working their asses off to provide for their families. And they thank you. But again, the money isn't what it's all about. Sometimes what you need to focus on is just and understand that how much you make isn't necessarily being a good provider. Like if you're constantly focused on the money and that's what's driving you to the point where you're never at home to be with your kids, yes, you may be giving them more opportunities to do things, sports and other stuff. But if they don't have a relationship with their dad, what does it really matter? Right? Again, that's coming from a guy who had no relationship from his dad. And he knows how detrimental and how hard and just challenging that is. So I want to end this video off just by saying this. And I want to ask you a question. If you gave your kid a choice between the extra overtime that they don't see you so that you can make whatever X amount of dollars, or that you show up to their hockey game or to their ballet or their dance recital, or even just tuck them in bed. Um, what do you think they'd choose? I know my kids would choose time with me over time at being at work every time. So I encourage you to follow on along with the series. We're going to be looking at the idea of providing for your family and how money doesn't have to be the focus of it. We're going to be coming at it from different angles, the psychology about it, different solutions, some personal stories about me, just kind of unpacking it because again, this idea that if your worth is tied into how much money you make, it's not a fair advantage, man. There are people I know who make half of what I make and who arguably could be a better dad than I am or could just be a better person. So this whole influencer social media hype that you need a Ferrari, it's all just it's all fake. It's not real. We're all just average guys doing our best to provide for our families. So I encourage you to subscribe, leave a comment, tag someone who needs to hear this, comment, tag someone, a dad that is killing it. We all come from different upbringings. We all have our own baggage. We all have our own chains that we carry from past generations. But it's up to us whether we want to break those chains and become better men or if we want to just settle and repeat the toxic or bad traits that our fathers and their fathers left with them.